there, I am Pastor Grace Hammer.
And I'm Chaplain Tony Brewster.
Welcome to Scrolling Through the Scriptures. We are going to begin in Genesis 1, but first we wanted to let you know what references we would be utilizing. Of course, first is the Bible, and I will be using the New King James Bible. I happen to be using the Thou Art Loosed edition with as general editor, T.D. Jakes. It has some great commentaries in there that is lifting up to women without being disparaging to men, which I love. But it is the New King James Version, and the reason I use that one is because we use the Word of Promise audio Bible. So if you could get a close look at this. This is produced by Carl Amari, directed by Joby Cerny, and original score composed and conducted by Stefano Minetti. And if I have mispronounced those names, please forgive me. The Word of Promise audio Bible is read directly from the New King James Version, and it is a dramatic audio theater, so you will be hearing the background sounds of the birds and the animals. You will hear God talking to Adam. You'll hear Adam speaking to Eve and Eve responding. All of these voices together from such great actors and actresses as Lou Diamond Phillips, Kimberly Williams Paisley, John Rhys Davies, and narrating throughout the Old Testament is
Michael York.
Michael York, our favorite Three Musketeer from back in the day. So I hope you will enjoy this, and you can order these online. I'm sure you can probably find those if you Google, find different ones that are still selling these. I have purchased this at a Christian bookstore. Our other resource that I am using is the Moody Bible Commentary, which is a commentary all-in-one going from Genesis to Revelation. I use this in my sermon preparations as well. The general editors are Michael Rydelnik and Michael Van Lanningham. I thoroughly enjoy those. And also from Moody Publishers is the Moody Handbook of Messianic Prophecy. I highly encourage anyone who's wanting to study the Bible to get either one of these in looking at the Old Testament or the New Testament, either one. Great resources. And Tony, you're using a different resource.
I am using the New Interpreter's Bible, which is a combination of the Bible in two different versions. I've got the New Interpreter's Bible, as well as the NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version. They're column by column, and then after you read a chapter, there is a commentary written about that chapter that helps bring it to life. And so it's like you get 3 in 1. And my husband got me the set of these as I started seminary, so has a special place in my heart.
And to give you some of our background, we met in seminary at the University of Dubuque Theological Seminary in Dubuque, Iowa in the fall of 2010. This fall will be our 10-year anniversary of friendship. We met during orientation. I was studying to be a Presbyterian minister and went through and received my Master's of Divinity. I already had my Master's in Christian Education from Virginia, from the, at that time, it was Union Theological Seminary Presbyterian School of Christian Education. They've shortened the name since then, and had served the church for 10 years in that capacity. And Tony?
I had gone to Huntington College here in Indiana, and I had 2 bachelor's degrees when I graduated, one in elementary choral music, one in, well, one in choral general music, and that was a K through 12 degree, and then one in elementary education, K through 12. And so when I graduated, I wound up working in elementary music. At the same time, I wound up, before I even started teaching, working in Christian music. And from that first job, I worked as a choral music director in some church or other, steady through until I went to seminary in 2010. So I was either in a Methodist church or a Lutheran church or another Methodist church for all that time. And when I started seminary, I worked in 2 different churches as a student pastor. After seminary, I worked in hospital chaplaincy. And so now I'm sort of semi-retired and back to working with Pastor Grace as the minister of music in her congregation.
But you have your degree but you were studying
Yes.
under the Methodist
Yes.
discipline, and so, but have your master's in
Yes.
divinity,
Yes.
Master of Divinity. And so we've come together and we have been teaching, we have taught this class before, and during COVID-19, we decided we wanted to do this online to open it up to more people. So we hope you will enjoy this class. We're going to take a short break and be right back. Welcome back. That was a very short pause for you. So anyway, I just want to make sure that you understand this scrolling through the scriptures, this Bible study, is for the person who has maybe read through the Bible once a year, every year, all of their lives, but has never done an in-depth study. The person who has never read through the Bible may have been given a New Testament when they came to know the Lord, has just now recently come to know the Lord. This is for anyone. This is not an academic, scholarly pursuit of an in-depth study of the scriptures. This is an application as we go through, starting with Genesis 1, and we learn about the history of who we are as a family of God, starting with Genesis 1. God created. God was there. God was doing for us and planning and preparing for us, that we can see where he was reaching out in love and preparing his love and mercy for all of us. And then how do we apply that knowledge to our daily lives? And that is where I get my joy and my strength, is from the very beginnings of knowing that he was planning things out, even for me, here thousands and thousands of years later. So, I want us to begin, before we get started on Genesis 1. Tony, did you know that we have very, very clear, absolute, positive proof that Genesis 1 was written by Moses? Well, that all of Genesis, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, Genesis, Exodus, can you name the third?
Deuteronomy.
Well, Deuteronomy is the 5th one.
Oh, the 5th one. Genesis,
Exodus,
Leviticus. Oh, something. Exodus.
Numbers.
No. Numbers.
Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy.
Yes. Okay, so that they were written by
Moses.
Moses. Except Moses did not write the last chapter of Deuteronomy. How do we know that?
He was dead.
Because it was writing about his death, so he couldn't have written that.
Unless he came back ghostified.
Yeah, no, he did not do that. All right, so if you will look in the book of John, the 7th chapter, verse 22. So the book of John, 7th chapter, and I have this marked in my Bible. Where is my little paperclip? There it is.
Right there.
Okay. John chapter 7, verse 22. We have Jesus speaking. He's going back and forth with some of the Sanhedrin and different folks. Jesus answered and said to them, I did one work, and you all marvel. Verse 22. Moses therefore gave you circumcision, not that it is from Moses, but from the fathers, and you circumcise a man on the Sabbath. What did Jesus just say? Moses gave you circumcision. Not that it came from Moses, but it came from the fathers. Moses wrote about it. Where did Moses write about that? In the 17th chapter of Genesis. If Jesus said Moses wrote Genesis, I believe that Moses wrote Genesis and wrote the Pentateuch. That to me settles it right there. Why study the Old Testament? Also, if you look in Luke, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
Now, tell them what the Pentateuch is.
The Pentateuch is the first 5 books of the Bible. It's also known as the books of the law, the Mosaic law. But Luke, the Gospels, Luke chapter 24 and the 27th verse, after Jesus has been raised from the dead and he is on the road to Emmaus and he's met up with a couple of guys and is talking to them and they do not recognize them. And they say, and he says, peace to you. But they were terrified and frightened and supposed they had seen a spirit. And he said to them, why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? No, wait. Hang on. Am I in the right place? Luke 24, verse. I was in the wrong place. Let me try this again. Luke 24, verse 27. I was looking at verse 37. So then he said to them, O foolish ones, at verse 25, and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken. Ought not the Christ to have suffered these things and to enter into his glory? Verse 27, and beginning at Moses and all the prophets, he expounded to them in all the scriptures the things concerning himself. It's right there. Jesus thought it was important enough to go back through the Old Testament and to know all the things that the Old Testament says about Jesus. So I think it's important for us to go back through and to study the Old Testament. So now we are going to listen from the Word of Promise audio Bible, and we are going to listen to Genesis 1. You will have Michael York again speaking, and you will have the sounds of creation in the background. And I hope you enjoy this, and at the end of chapter 1 we will be discussing the chapter.
The first book of Moses, called Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said,
Let there be light.
And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day.
Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters.
Thus God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. So the evening and the morning were the second day.
Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear.
And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good.
Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb that yields seed, and the fruit tree that yields fruit according to its kind, whose seed is in itself on the earth.
And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, the herb that yields seed according to its kind, and the tree that yields fruit, whose seed is in itself according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the third day.
Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens, to give light on the earth.
And it was so. Then God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day.
Let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth, across the face of the firmament of the heavens.
So God created great sea creatures, and every living thing that moves, with which the waters abounded, according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good, and God blessed them.
Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let birds multiply on the earth.
So the evening and the morning were the fifth day.
Let the earth bring forth the living creature according to its kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth, each according to its kind.
And it was so. And God made the beast of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good.
Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.
So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. Then God blessed them.
Be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seed. To you it shall be for food. Also, to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food.
And it was so. Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed, it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day.
Michael York as the narrator. That voice.
He was okay. He was okay.
Okay.
He was okay. I liked him better as a musketeer.
Okay.
All that
Gotcha.
sword stuff.
But what about Martin Jarvis as God?
I liked him as God.
You know, I hate to say it, I'm not connecting him with anything right now, but Martin Jarvis as God, that voice, it sounds like it's God.
Yes.
He is good. All right, now then, let's get to the actual scriptures themselves.
Okay.
All right, so we have in the beginning. This is the first that there has been any sense of time.
Yes. Time begins with God creating.
With right here.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Did your commentary, stuff like that, have any sense about that? Mine did not. It's just, you know, it's the beginning of time, because God lives outside of time.
Yes.
There is no beginning or end with God, but God created time at this point. And when he created the heavens and the earth, he created time. Now then, we're also talking about, there's lots of conversations, and I've heard this, you've probably heard this. Was a 24-hour day? Was it a moment in the time of God can be like 1,000 years? What does yours say? Let me tell you if you're right or wrong.
Well, it did not know. And it said that wasn't important. What was important was that we acknowledge that God created.
Aha. Well, let me tell you. They weren't wishy-washy.
Oh, they weren't wishy-washy.
They weren't wishy-washy. Michael Rydelnik and the general editors, Michael Van Lanningham, I will try to say his name correctly, they took a stand. Because they're saying in several different parts, when it talks about Yom, the Hebrew word for day, it uses it very specifically.
Yes.
Night, it was morning, and it was the evening the next day.
Yes.
And so it says it was a 24-hour day. Now, you know I'm very conservative and literal in my biblical understanding. And people say that I put God in a box because I say he can only do what's in here.
Yeah.
All right? But I say, let's let God do what is in here. That God created the entire universe with not even the blink of an eye. It did not take him billions of years to do it. Why do you think it took him billions of years to do it? He turned water into wine within the snap of a finger, not even that. Why would it take him? And they said it was the best wine. When Jesus turned the water into wine, it was the very best wine. It had all the taste and the flavor of a very fine wine that had been aged and all of that sort of stuff. Why would it take God millions of years to give rocks and trees and all of that the properties of being thousands of years old, millions of years old? Why would God need that? He created adults as adults. He did not create them as cells that then formed into and grew into adults, he created a man and a woman, fully grown, mature, with adult reasoning capabilities. They did not have to, to grow into it. He formed them, and they were capable of dealing with what was around them from the get-go. From the time he breathed his breath into them,
Yeah.
they were able to deal with it. And I say, let's let God be God and say God can do whatever God wants to, and that God created and gave everything its properties that to us scientifically we say, oh, well, it's billions of years old. Well, yeah. If God created something to have the properties of being millions and billions of years old, to us it would seem that old. But in reality, it's not that old. Does that make sense?
Yes and no.
Okay, why?
Well, my commenters acknowledge that there was some glitches, how some of the text seemed to indicate that there was a before the moment when God created what it spoke about in Genesis.
Okay.
And that's why they commented that this time began when God created. How exactly does it say it? Time begins with God's ordering of this time when humanity, when animals and humanity began to be a part of the system of ordering. There seems to be a more primeval time, back to dragons and not dragons, dinosaurs. And
So when it says that God created all the living creatures, that was...
no, that would be back in that primeval era. But they are saying that, okay, that's not a battle that we want to pick up and fight. There are some that believe in the whole scientific, Great Bang Theory, and, amoeba to 2 cells to 3 cells to this whole bit.
Well, I believe in the Big Bang Theory. God said it and bang it
Bang,
happened.
it happened. But this wasn't a battle that they wanted to get into. They believe that God created.
Okay.
Period.
Well, now, here is where I do come down to it, is that my belief, my salvation is not dependent upon whether or not I believe in a 7-day creation or a 7 billion year creation.
Correct.
My salvation is dependent upon acknowledging Jesus Christ as the Son of God and Savior and accepting
Yes.
His atonement for my sins.
Yes.
So, I believe God created.
Yes.
I believe He created in 7 days. Your commentaries are saying something different, or acknowledging
They're
the possibility
acknowledging that
of
there is
something
the
different.
possibility of something different.
And there are lots of people. I have known Christian ministers who fully acknowledge, fully accept evolution. And that's not a conversation I want to have with them, because I'm not going to change their minds. They're not going to change my minds. We both believe in the salvation through Jesus Christ's atoning sacrifice. So,
Now here's
yes.
what they do say that I totally agree with.
Okay.
God is speaking as He creates. He is telling us what happens. and God said, "Let there be light."
Yes.
And then God saw that light was good. So he is speaking the word and calling things into existence.
Okay.
It's deliberate. It is not accidental.
Exactly.
Not accidental. And it's a victory over chaos. There was a dark void. Things were swirling. And he brought that chaos into order.
But it was his, so was it chaos? In the sense that we know chaos?
It was chaos in the way that we understand chaos, I believe.
But it wasn't chaos to him. Because he created it.
It was the building materials that he needed.
But I do not see it, for him it was not chaotic. It was kind of like, I think of when I'm cooking, which I rarely do. I have everything out on the counter and it looks like a big mess, but I know where everything is and what I've got to put everything together to make the biscuits or the cornbread.
But it does look chaotic.
It does look chaotic, but it's not chaotic to me. Okay, let's move on.
All right.
All right. Did you realize that days 1 through 3, God was creating or was separating out the areas that we were to occupy?
Yes.
That we were to occupy. I had not really put it in that sense before. And that days 4, 5, and 6, God was creating the animals, the birds, and us that were to occupy those areas. And it's like, started off, okay, we're going to get the areas ready. I'm going to get the house ready, get the plans ready, and all that sort of stuff. And then I've got it ready. Now you can move in.
Yeah, and it was deliberate, not accidental.
Yes.
Because he had to know what he was going to create and what they needed to survive, so that he had the home ready for the fish.
Yes.
He had the home ready for the birds that fly, that nested in the trees.
Yes.
Yes.
Now then, where is the first mention of the Trinity?
Verse 2.
Verse 2?
Well,
That's the second part of the Trinity.
that's the second part. We
Okay,
have
read
God
that there.
and the Spirit of God.
Okay. I'll give you that.
Yes.
I'll give you that. But where is the Trinity? Where is the Trinity? And we have Michelle and Melvin Matos here. They're working the camera and watching over us to make sure we don't do something really stupid here. So they're setting it for the bloopers video. So, Michelle, Melvin, do you know where the first real thing of the Trinity, or that there is a plurality of God, mentioned?
It says us, let us.
Let us
Let us do
Yes.
what?
create.
Let us make
Or make. Yes.
make man in our image according to our likeness. Verse 26. And so then God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. And that may have been the only thing he regretted ever saying. Fill the earth and subdue it. That might have been the only speech he ever regretted really making.
Could be.
But he knew what was going to happen. From the time that he first created the heavens and the earth, he knew what the earth was going to be like today. With the plastics that are in the ocean, with, the plagues, the pestilence, all that sort of stuff. He knew what was going to be going on. This is not new to him. I'm having to kind of watch our time. as to, we said this would be a 1-hour Bible study. So I want to stay true to that. So then we go on after that. He then goes on to say, see, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, every tree whose fruit yields seed, every beast of the earth. You got it all. You are to take care of it. We are to be stewards over it. We are to be caretakers over it. We're not to misuse them. We're not to abuse them. We are to take care of them. We have them for our good pleasure, for our enjoyment.
And isn't it intriguing
Yes.
that even though he knew what it would be like in 2020,
Yes.
in verse 31, God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. He knew that there would still be good. He knew that there would still be a fellowship of believers.
Yes.
He saw enough good.
Yeah.
And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this introduction, this basic introduction to Genesis. Next time we will get into a little more a little more of the meat of Genesis as we look at the expanded Genesis 2, and we'll probably get through chapters 3 and 4. If you have any questions regarding chapters 1 or going through the first 5 chapters of Genesis, please feel free to call the number on your screen, and either number, and they will get a message to either myself or to Miss Tony, and we will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.